Hello kids, this is Mr. Whistler with your video lesson of the day, and today we will be talking about the Louisiana Purchase. Key vocabulary: our first word is secede, to withdraw from the Union. 8th grade. When a state leaves the country. Of course, they don't physically leave like it showed in the picture, but they dissolve their political bonds with the country and they try to become their own country. This weakens the country. Our second word is treaty. Official, a formal agreement between two or more countries in reference to peace, alliance, commerce, which is trade, or other international relations. Any agreement or contact. Now, if you look at this map here, this is a map of the early United States. Here's the 13 states. And during the French and Indian War, when these were colonies, we fought the British. We were British at the time, and the British fought the French, and the French lost, and this was all French land. So because the French lost, in the Treaty of Paris, the British got all this land. Well, after the Revolutionary War, we told the British we didn't want to be British anymore, and we fought them in our revolution, and we won, so the British had to get out, and we got all the land in the treaty. So, oftentimes, treaties deal with land. And Jefferson used the president's treaty-making powers to justify the Louisiana Purchase. All right, Western Territory. During the 1800s, more and more Americans moved west. It was a very difficult journey over the Appalachians, and they traveled in Conestoga Wagons. They look like this. For these westbound pioneers, their most valued possessions, things they just could not do without, would be their rifle, which they used for hunting and protection, and their axe, which they used for clearing the way as they were going through the mountains. So everybody had at least those two things. They wouldn't get very far. Right now, the United States in 1800 bordered the Mississippi River. Spain held everything on the other side of the Mississippi River, in western Florida, this little strip here, and eastern Florida, where the peninsula is. The area... So Spain had been letting the Americans use the Mississippi River to transport their crops to New Orleans. And this was very important for these western farmers here, because they would grow their crops, put it on barges on the Mississippi, float it down to New Orleans, and sell their crops. So it was vital for the United States economy at the time. But in 1802, the Spanish changed their policy and stopped letting us use the river. Well, we were wondering what was going on, but what happened was Spain made a secret agreement with France, who was kind of a world power at the time, and they gave the Louisiana Territory and western Florida, this little gray strip, to the French. Well, this caused a serious threat to the United States economy, because we needed that river. And this guy, Napoleon, was the one causing the problem. Now, he was a dictator, and he had conquered most of Europe. He was kind of like the Hitler of his time. And he still needed to conquer Russia, and he still needed to conquer Britain. And he needed money for his war with Britain. Well, Jefferson sent a delegation of people to France to try to buy this little strip right here, western Florida and New Orleans. So if we controlled this little strip of land and New Orleans, then we could use the river if we wanted to. So, and he authorized them to pay up to $10 million for just this little strip of land. Well, Napoleon needed money to finance his war with Britain, and he didn't really need this land anymore, so he made an offer to the Americans. He said, hey, why don't you buy a little bit more from me, and I'll sell you this western strip of Florida plus all this for $15 million. Well, this was way beyond what they were supposed to do, but it was too good a deal to pass up. So they bought it. And the Louisiana Territory pleased Jefferson very much because we needed this land for all these people heading west. The only problem was Jefferson was worried whether the purchase was legal. Because if you remember, Jefferson's a Democrat, and the Democrat believed in a strict interpretation of the Constitution. And nowhere in the Constitution did it say anything about acquiring new territory. So Jefferson was conflicted here. But he really, really wanted this land. So what he did was he looked through the Constitution and he justified it through the president's treaty-making powers. So Congress liked the idea and they ratified the purchase. So overnight, the size of the United States basically doubled from this to this. So Jefferson bought this land and he wanted to know what was out there, so he got Congress to pay for an expedition to explore it. So Jefferson hires his private secretary, Meriwether Lewis, and William Clark to lead the expedition. They spent 2 years exploring, recording information about people, plants, animals, and the geography of the land. Now the Federalists did not like this very much. They opposed the purchase because they thought the states made from the new territory would be Republican, and this would make them even weaker. Well, it really didn't matter to them because they were done anyway because of the Alien and Sedition Acts. So the Federalists in Massachusetts, where a lot of them lived, plotted to secede. But in order for their plan to work, to secede and make their own country, they needed one of the bigger states to go with them, and they wanted New York. Well, Aaron Burr, the current vice president, happened to be running for governor of New York, and they wanted him to help them. Well, he said if they supported him when he ran for governor, then once he became governor, he would lead New York into secession with them, and they could form their own country. Well, Alexander Hamilton, who hated and never trusted Burr, found out about it and accused him of plotting treason, which he was doing. And when word got out about this through Alexander Hamilton, Burr lost the election. Now, this was the second time, at least, that Hamilton cost Burr an election. Remember the last time he lost the presidency by 1 vote. So Burr was very angry and he challenged Alexander Hamilton to a duel. Well, when you challenge someone to a duel, the guy getting challenged gets to pick the weapons. And Hamilton picked pistols. Well, Hamilton had his own set of pistols, and these pistols were fancy ones. They were bigger than normally dueling pistols, so they were more dangerous. And they had adjustable triggers. And Aaron Burr probably didn't know you could adjust the pressure on the trigger. And so Hamilton loosened his trigger up so you barely had to push on it before the gun would fire. Well, even though he tried to cheat, Burr shot and killed Hamilton. So Alexander Hamilton, one of our founding fathers, somebody who served in Washington's administration and advised him on many matters, and the guy that saved our country financially, kind of dies in an auspicious way. Burr fled to avoid arrest. All right, so here's a little more. I'm just going to read these paragraphs kind of to tell you the end of the story. They weren't really sure who fired first, but there was a 3 to 4 second interval between the first and the second shot. Historians say that Hamilton might have been undone by his own trickery, secretly setting his pistol's trigger to require only half pound of pressure as opposed to the usual 10 pounds. Burr most likely had no idea that the gun's trigger pressure could be reset. Hamilton brought the pistols, which had a larger barrel than a regular dueling pistols, and a secret hair trigger, and therefore were much more deadly. Hamilton gave himself an unfair advantage in their duel and got the worst of it anyway. In any event, Hamilton's shot missed Burr, but Burr's shot was fatal. Burr was charged with multiple crimes, including murder in New York and New Jersey, but was never tried in either jurisdiction. He fled to South Carolina, where his daughter lived with her family, but soon returned to Philly and then to Washington to complete his term as vice president. He avoided New York and New Jersey for a time, but all the charges against him were eventually dropped. Now, this probably happened because during this time in our history, or before this time, people fought duels and they were legal. Well, right around this time, several states had passed laws making dueling illegal, and there was probably a little bit of a transition period to where, to let people get used to the law. As long as he stayed away from New York and New Jersey for a while, the statutes of limitations eventually probably ran out. So today, if you fight a duel, you'll go to jail for murder, and there's no ifs and buts. And that's the story of the Louisiana Purchase and the end of Alexander Hamilton. All right, here's our Louisiana Purchase notebook. I want you guys to color your maps, 3 different colors, 1 color for the United States, 1 color for the Louisiana Purchase, and 1 color for the Spanish territory. On this side, I want you to draw a comic showing the story of the Louisiana Purchase. I like using the Mississippi to transport crops. France says we can't use the Mississippi anymore. Go to France and buy Western Florida for $10 million. I don't need Louisiana anymore. Do you want to buy it for $50 million? What? Let's ask Jefferson. Heck yeah. We just doubled the size of the United States. Yippee! So you guys can use this, or you can make your own, but make a little comic strip of the Louisiana Purchase. And then the writing today is name 3 effects of the Louisiana Purchase of the Lewis and Clark expedition. They learned about new plants and animals, they learned about the Indians, and they made a map all the way to the Pacific Ocean. Explain why the settlement of Louisiana Purchase was not an effect of the Lewis and Clark expedition. Well, a couple of reasons. It took them a while to get things organized, so it's not going to be immediate, and then the Indians probably slowed things down as well. Well, there's your lesson for the Louisiana Purchase, kids, and make sure you have your notebook done by tomorrow. Thanks, and have a great day.